Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. I appreciate you guys. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but WSVN had caught up with Javon Holland. And Javon was asked about the Kick Rocks video that he had put up, which, happened to coincide with Vic Fangio getting fired. And Javon Holland, he claims, this is what he said. He's like, nah, dude, this was not a shot at Vic Fangio. I just happened to put that up there. And I'm just like, all right, dude, what do you think? We're all dumb? Like, we're all going to look at this video and he's got kind of the sly smile on his face. Like, I'm just a coincidence, baby.
Got to ask you about the Vic Fangio video, Kicking Rocks. Tell us about that.
Nah, man, it just so happened that I had posted that right when the news came out that Vic got fired. I wasn't necessarily sure that Vic got fired until after I posted the video. It just so happened that I picked up some random rocks, kicked them and filmed it, posted on Instagram. Everybody wants to call me the bad guy. I'm innocent. I didn't do anything wrong. All I was doing was just posting a simple video. It has an analogy, but the analogy had nothing to do with Vic. I wish that brother the best.
All right, dude. Okay, so he wishes Vic Fangio, that brother, nothing but the best. Which, Snowman, come on, dude. Like, I don't know if you think we're all born at night, but it wasn't last night, dude. It was very clearly taking a shot at Vic Fangio, and it's okay. Very clearly there was a lot of feathers ruffled by the way that this dude went about his business. They did not like the idea that Vic had, this overlord, one way, my way, or the highway say. And I think especially for the guys who are a little bit more aggressive as players, feeling like they're a bit handcuffed by the system, which, look, it's an interesting conundrum for all of this because the defense held up from a point standpoint their end of the bargain towards the end of the year. This honestly, if you talk about confidence in something, the offense got all of the shine this season, all of it. And yet the defense was the thing that was keeping them in games and that would leave you kind of disappointed at the end of the offense couldn't come through for the defense. And a lot of the times, there were some questionable decisions and, maybe drives went a little bit longer than maybe they should have. But ultimately, it's a points game, and I think they did an okay job, especially with the hand that they were dealt, which was very, very shorthanded by the end of the year. But Jalen Ramsey, who's at the Pro Bowl, talked to some reporters. This is from Adam Beasley, Pro Football Network, and Ramsey had said, I wish Vic well in what he does. And that was all Ramsey could finally get out. Then he was asked about these comments that Ron Jaworski had come out with, which, you want to just talk about the most cliche bullshit South Florida story that I've ever heard of. Ron Jaworski's out here being like, these players are out there, they're lazy, and they want to party out on South Beach. And I'm just like, oh my God, could you have two grandpas more aligned with the take? Look, you're talking about a guy who claims to not know Taylor Swift's Shake It Off, one of the most famous songs of the last 20 years. And, that music these days is quote unquote noise. Now I got to also hear how all the players were going down to the South Beach and partying. So Jalen Ramsey was asked about this stuff from Ron Jaworski, and he said, if Vic said that, then I would say that he should be man enough to address who it is. I don't think Vic said that, though personally I don't think Vic would do that, and I disagree because I know what we were about. And I know that I worked hard for damn sure. I know how I led the other guys in that secondary, and I know how we worked. Says, but at the same time, we weren't couch potatoes. We didn't go in the house all the time. Like, I worked harder than, I'll stand on the table and say that I worked harder than anybody out here right now. But tonight, I'm going to go be with my homies. We're going to chill. We're going to go do whatever we got to do. And then tomorrow, I'll be back at practice and do my thing again. So you have to have a balance in life in general. When it's about work and when it's about football, you have to be about football. But I don't think that he said that because I don't think that's how it was around here this year. So I think that's a good thing to hear from Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey, a great conduit to not only the locker room and the way that things turned around for that defense, but also has a good relationship with the head coach as well. Do you really think that this was a team that like bought into itself a little bit too much and didn't work hard? I really don't think that's the case. Were there some young guys who were immature? Like, we didn't see anything from Cam Smith this year. Did immaturity have something to do with it? Very possible. But the thing I would say to that, if it is a Cam Smith issue, and I don't mean to single him out, it's just that's kind of like the headline guy everybody would go to, because I think everybody thinks that Christian Wilkins worked his ass off and Zach Sealer works their ass off, and the pass rushers, and Jerome Baker, we saw the rehab that he went through. And so I don't think the guys that played are getting hit with this accusation. If you're going to say it's going to be a young guy and people are saying, well, this is all right, but your season shouldn't be, if you're not going to play him and you don't trust him because you don't feel like he's developed or you don't think he's put the work in, fine. But he hasn't been an issue then all year. He hasn't been a factor for your team all year. So I can't get, crazy about the idea of, Vic Fangio didn't trust X rookie or X young guy because that person didn't seem as dedicated as they need to be. Unfortunately that happens. That is one of those things. In a roster that big, you're not going to have, I think, 100 studs that are working that good. But I think the guys who are actually effective players for the Dolphins, to think any of them didn't work up to snuff and didn't work that hard, like, no. We're talking about two issues here. Like, there seemed to be a communication issue from the coach wanting to have all this control to a player's head coach who takes the input of his players very seriously. And if he has a relationship with Tyreek Hill and he can do something about that, as opposed to Jalen Ramsey, where he's like, Ramsey's like, hey, I want to shadow this receiver. Can you talk to Fangs about it? And Fangs don't want to hear it. As a head coach, that's going to be an issue because you want to take the input of your players because you find it to be valuable. Look at what we're seeing around the league this year, right? You're going out there and you're seeing Bill Belichick, who's, trying to hunt down Don Shula for the all-time wins record. Why is nobody giving him a sniff? It's like, well, because he's old. He's set in his ways. It's not collaborative. These coaches are trying to communicate with their players. And I tell you another thing that's interesting. Like, this is a league that does not practice the way that it used to, especially once the season starts. And so you're going to take that input, I think, very seriously if you feel like it is valuable and they're decorated players like Holland and the way Ramsey are. So, I don't know. I think that this is, I don't think it's a case that Vic did a bad job. I don't think that he did a bad job. And you could understand why somebody like that, who's as credentialed as he is, would clash with very young guys who he does not trust, because he did not. But, to be fair to Vic, there were other guys that he ripped early in the year and that I think came around to have a nice season. David Long Jr. is a good example of this. Like, David Long, Vic Fangio was like, didn't have the time of day for this guy in the early parts of his tenure with the Dolphins. And I think really, came around to trust David Long and what he could bring to the table. Had a hell of a year. So, but that's not a young, David Long is not old, but he's been in the league a little bit. So the other interesting thing that Jalen Ramsey did say, he was asked about Brandon Staley, and he says, we were the number one defense in the whole NFL when I was with Coach Staley. So it was a good experience. He was one of the first coaches to really use all of my abilities. So that was nice. I really got to express who I was. That was probably the best year of my career. Very interesting food for thought. We have not really heard. You got a lot of coordinators getting handled. I saw, the linebacker coach for the Bills, he got upgraded. Bobby Babich, Chris Shula, he ended up staying with Los Angeles. So yeah, you're wondering like who is going to be that guy who ends up getting the defensive coordinator gig for the Miami Dolphins. As much as I think Brandon Staley's going to bristle some folks because he's kind of a laughingstock in the way that this year ended. I think Jalen Ramsey's input, because of his relationship with Mike McDaniel, is going to carry a lot of weight. And, you think about possibility of Xavier Howard being gone, even the possibility of Christian Wilkins being gone. Jalen Ramsey's going to become the face of the Miami Dolphins defense. And especially with the pass rushers dealing with the injuries that they have had, Brandon Staley, if he has the endorsement of Jalen Ramsey, I do think that is going to go a very, very long way in whether or not they hire him. And especially if they want to do some different things and not just, I know that, he's a Fangio disciple, but clearly there's some more flexibility with his players, because I think, as we've heard in press conferences this year with Jalen Ramsey, not that thrilled at times with Vic Fangio's not being willing to let him do some of the things he thought would help more. Whereas Staley, he's telling you right there in black and white, yes, this guy, I think, let me play to the best of my abilities better than anybody has in my entire career. So some very, very interesting stuff from the Dolphins star corner.